A warm welcome to everyone, dear ones. Today we have gathered not to roast, but to dissect the personality of the legendary lady, Amy Winehouse. We are not here to find someone to hate or blame for her death. We are here to delve deeper into this personality, to understand why certain processes were happening in her inner world. We are here to take a closer look at this personality, to understand why certain processes were happening in her inner world, to figure out where such a harmful addiction came from, and to uncover Amy's inner world. To understand where such a harmful addiction, let's say, to substances, to alcohol came from, and in general to slightly reveal Amy's inner world. So, comfortable, sit back and lie down here. Our affair will be quite substantial. I warn you right away. And so, let's move on to the personality. Characterization of the personality. Of course, the first card is quite eloquent. We have a destructive one here. So let's put it this way. Amy was quite tough in the sense that if she liked something, she liked it. And if she didn't, well, let's just say, if she said no, then it was no. If she said it wouldn't happen, then it wouldn't happen. If she said no, means no. If she said it wouldn't happen, then it wouldn't happen. Sometimes, well, let's put it this way. In a direct case, we know that she was a bit, I'll say it like this for now, but I think it will turn out to be a bit different. However, in any case, she destroyed both her career and herself. In this context, the card of the destroyer clearly came out first. I'll say it like this for now, but I think it will turn out to be a bit different. However, in any case, she destroyed both her career and herself. In this context, the card of the destroyer clearly came out first. Second, martyr, I carry my cross, and here have both the destroyer and the martyr. My cross destroys me, my cross breaks me, my cross not only affects me, but also drags along my entire career. Amy Skriaga, my cross destroys me, my cross breaks me, my cross affects not just me, but also drags along my entire career. Amy Skriaga. So this isn't about money, by the way, because next we have a doctor, where it is the spiritual. So she probably didn't confide in many people. She probably didn't share with many people what she was going through, what she was feeling, and so on. Second, the ideological inspirer and idea-driven people, the pioneers, in other words, those who are innovators, those who discover something, those who go against the grain, against the norm, and so on. These are the people who are the generators of ideas, the generators of how things can be done, what can be done, where to go, and so on. They aren't afraid to try something new because for them, something new is exactly what they need. These are the people who are the generators of ideas, the generators of how things can be done, what can be done, where to go, and so on. They aren't afraid to try something new because for them, something new is exactly what they need. By the way, there's a card of the outsider here. They are not afraid to try something new because for them, something new is exactly what they need. By the way, there's a card of the outsider here. I believe that Amy felt like quite an outsider in her life, especially at the age we know her from. And now more towards, and here it is. I think that throughout her life, she felt exactly like that. She could be surrounded by people without any problems. All this concert activity indicates that you are surrounded by people. But being surrounded by people doesn't mean that you don't have an inner void, a gaping one that can't be filled by anything or anyone. Well, she did have someone, but the quality of that man was such that we will still take a look at him too, of course. Here's how we understand it. Yes, Amy. So Amy was a pretty good person. By the way, the Berserker is a breakthrough. Pretty good and breakthrough. The Enchanter and the Berserker are next to each other. The King has already shown all his cards here, and the King was a bit short on something here. Amy had a more masculine character. So she was quite tough. She was a real berserker enchanter. So these are people who will stand up for their rights. These are quite vengeful people. People who can afford to give you a drink if you're overstepping, will stand up for their rights. People who will to fight for something, to strive for something, to really knock on those closed doors, because I won't just give up that easily. Let's put it this way. As one wise person said, one should not pity the weak, but rather the strong. Because if a strong person breaks down, then, relatively speaking, that's it. Essentially, that's what happened. I tried, ran, and then it was over. Ah, right. So Annie's personality is quite interesting in that she was truly a strong person, a genuinely ideological person, an innovator, someone who could come up with and generate ideas, someone who could really push through. By the way, I think that if what happened hadn't happened, her career would have taken off and she would have achieved even greater heights. By the way, I think that if what happened hadn't happened, her career would have taken off and she would have achieved even greater heights. And that lingering feeling of being an outsider still stays with me. So, the person probably didn't fulfill some of her life needs at the time when she really needed to. Here we are sitting in front of our screens looking at these personalities, famous and wealthy. She's a multimillionaire. We look at someone like Lady Gaga, and we think that life, they seem so happy. But as they say, the rich also cry. Everyone would like that, they are happy there and so on. But as they say, and it's not for nothing, the rich also cry. So it's definitely the same here. They want to ask, what crosses did she bear? Those two addictions and a fatal love. For an addicted person, is there anything else? And by the way, what's really interesting is that despite her status, Emnia was quite down to earth. Yes, she was. She was a rebel. She had this mischievous character, but she was quite down to earth. She didn't have this kind of crown. She didn't have that terrifying cat that sometimes comes with holes. I ask, what crosses did she bear? I always take myself with me. So let's put it this way. I am my own inner tormentor. So self-flagellation, self-knowing, self-examination. You could even say, and I just sitting inside myself, gnawing away and so on. Mother Earth. This, by the way, is about kindness. And strangely enough, motherhood. I think that at some point, and we'll look into this in more detail later, Amy realized that she didn't want so much a career as she wanted simple human happiness, no matter how happy that sounds. I want to be a wife. I want to be a woman. I want to be a mother. So Mother Earth, I want to love, care, and give that life. And by the way, just a sec. Hold on, I'm formulating. So everything that was boiling inside me and what I wanted was different from what I had. And against that backdrop, sometimes I would have aggressive outbursts and sometimes I was more aggressive than usual. More than usual. What? What was it hiding? What was it hiding? Two sides. A slave, by the way. Tied by the hands. Slave of what? A slave in a bond. I am a slave to my, well, let's say, the image of my fame. So here's the thing. I am a slave to my fame. I am a slave to my celebrity status. I have to behave a certain way. I have to do this and that and so on. So I had clear boundaries about what I should do and what I shouldn't do. I'm not used to living like that because, as I said, rebellious people, and here's the essence of a rebel. Rebellious people can never, it's hard for them to live by some kind of schedule. So it's hard for them to get up at 6 in the morning to be somewhere by 7, then at 8, and so on, following that schedule. And this kind of thing drives them a bit crazy. That is, it is difficult for them to get up at 6 in the morning so that at 7, they can be somewhere at 8, so and so, so and so, so and so, and so on. And this drives them a bit crazy. So I think that this lifestyle has also taken a toll on her. Let's take a little peek further. Did she enjoy the celebrity life? She liked it. Did it bring her discomfort? And sometimes a quiet feeling of, I want to throw everything away and just fade into the sunset. Yes, it did. So I both like it and I can't stand it anymore. Fatih. I think that stardom gave her another boost to addiction as it became available. Plus, when you start to have money, when you gain some fame, when you have everything, sooner or later, it can drive you a little crazy. And here, the Fatih responds that there are human sacrifices for such dedication. So, dedication is, God, I tried this and that, I bought myself this, that, and the other. I have closed all my life's needs. I have closed all my desires. I have everything I wanted, everything I wanted, everything I dreamed of. And what am I supposed to do now? Nothing makes me happy. Nothing makes me happy. What should I do now? Where should I get those emotions? And this is where the second cycle in life begins. So I'm more than sure that celebrity life didn't just give her a push, it opened up opportunities for, again, all sorts of substances, making them accessible. There became more of them. Right. There became more of them. Yes. She had a pretty good sense of humor, but often she used it as a cover. It was a mask. I mean, her mask. This joyfulness, there's always some kind of drive, cheerfulness. Whoever knew her more closely. How can I put this? She was known to be more friendly. They say about her that she was always, almost always, of course, cheerful, active, blah, blah, blah. But it was just on a mask. And just a mask. Again, a woman. So, this is about personality. So I didn't realize the woman in myself as a woman. I realized the connection. A woman, no. So, the rebel card itself talks about the fact that, let's say, her somewhat rebellious nature made her path a bit more complicated than it could have been. Because rebellion is okay, it's good, it's both a plus and a minus. They need to be managed well so that it's only a plus. The angel card, well, it's about kindness. She was really quite kind-hearted. To some good men, yes. The boss card. We always talk about the appeal to the rebel. It just amplifies it. So, that means for us, I manage the card ballet. I decide how it will be. I decide what we do, how we do it. So you understand what I mean? And the addition of her star life added to her dependencies. Here we have the prostitute and the libertine. A libertine. The libertine. In short, you got it? Good people. So now, if I start translating from Russian, we'll end up just translating words instead of talking about the name. So the libertine. So this means I have money for entertainment. You understand, please? I have money for entertainment. So, and I can afford other entertainments for myself. I can afford whatever I want. Affordable Oshui, maybe guilt. As much as I want. This added access to, and this is her celebrity life. Again, if we refer back to this map, we're talking about how a person, when they got tired, they looked for rest. But this can be different, of course. And the more tired you are, the more exhausted you are, the more you feel like you've already completed everything, the harsher and more destructive your entertainment will be. Yes, there's a lot here about women's energies that are unrealized. Amy struggled to accept help. She was self-sufficient, believing she could do everything alone. Because she was quite self-sufficient, and let her do it herself. Such people, I think, believe they can do everything on their own. If they just can't, then they talk about how no one helps them with anything. I think such people believe they can do everything on their own. If they just can't, then they talk about how no one helps them with anything. Yes, plus regarding the positive traits of character. Yes, we have the positive traits of character. First of all, I always, again, Tolstoy in this case will say that I will always want more. I can do better. So, it's the very pickiness. But this pickiness, of course, sooner or later will play a very tough role. A terrible role against someone who digs into themselves. Because perfection doesn't exist. There's no limit to perfection. Perfection doesn't exist. And then, when we understand that perfection doesn't exist, but we still want it, we fall into other processes. Of course. Yes. A person who will come to mutual aid, to the rescue, help, advise, to comfort, and so on. That is, this is her manifestation of kindness, and so on. We talked about how she has a wonderful sense of humor. Yes, it exists. It was both her mask and in principle her character trait. Miser. The plus side of being a miser is that, as they say, happiness loves silence. Basically, in her case, this couldn't happen because the person is well known. That's the first point. The second point, so I keep inside what I'm going through because here we have to deal with emotions. Let's put it this way. Plus a destroyer, right? It will break. The card in the two-ply will say that destroyed her, that she didn't express herself. We talked about this recently. She didn't express herself. She never talked about what was boiling inside her. She never laid out problems. Yes, she sang about them. But let's talk about the problems. That's one thing. The second point is when we work through them. That's what kind of led to her downfall. That's the first point. The second point, since we're talking about positive qualities, the plus side of being a miser is that we go through everything, so to speak. I don't go around telling everyone about my inner self, because that's exactly what doesn't get spread in her case. Do you understand what I mean? The destroyer card itself, in terms of positive qualities, will indicate that these people are not afraid to finish one process and start another, to change something, to end something and begin again. These are people who, let's say, can leave someone behind and move on without much maturity, but not in the case of love, of course. The devil. The plus of the devil card is that I am a person who, let's say, will demand that everything is okay. Well, of course, I won't always live up to what I demand. So that everything is okay? Well, of course, I won't always live up to what I demand. The noble king and the man. Her character is what saved her. And it saved her for a while. So, this more masculine drive, this more internally expressed core has saved her in most cases throughout her life. Or you didn't let her fall into any dependencies and in general in life earlier than she did. This more internally expressed core has saved her in most cases throughout her life. Or you didn't let her fall into any dependencies and in general in life earlier than she did. And again, we have the devil. Or you didn't let her fall into any dependencies and in general in life earlier than she did. And again, the devil is with us. We'll say that the person was, again, picky about himself. I think, let's put it this way, I think Ellen kind of devoured herself to some extent, to be honest. There is even a plus of the devil. It is there, but it is not a negative card in itself, and it is a very insignificant plus. Because yes, I am training myself, so to speak. I am picking myself up, let's do something, and so on. But it comes to an end sooner or later. And if it comes, then it is very, very negative. That's it. Therefore, the devil's card is a plus. Repeat, there is no plus, but it is very, very small, very insignificant. The negative sides of character. Well, here we have another answer to what happened to her, why everything went the way it did. So, in order, the first negative side of her character, specifically the king. We'll talk here about again in her case. That card won't speak about self-love like me, this, that, no. He will talk about her, because why the king and the troublemaker? This is a negative manifestation of the king. So, this moment of rebellion in her was a downside. She often resisted for some reason. She was often like, no, no, and no. You can't persuade her. She's stubborn. It's like, for example, if the producers say one thing, she won't do it that way. She'll do it her own way. In other words, she complicated her life a bit, let's say, on her own. And that was one of the main downsides of her character, because she often stood her ground, put it that way. The eternal boy. People who don't want to grow up. I don't really know at what age fame came to Amy. She was already quite well known. But these are people who, first of all, either didn't experience a normal childhood or they grew up too fast, but not by their own choice, so to speak. So here we have, I don't want to grow up. I want to live the way I want. It's not about that. I want to live the way I want. It's not about that. This adult life, but it's not for me. It's not for me. It brings me suffering. I'm not interested in it. I want to live the way I want, the way I see it, and so on. I don't want to be responsible for anything. I just want to be carried around. Another downside of her character was this. Some disorganization, plus there's the rebellion, by the way. She's a rebellious child, for sure. Inside Amy, there was really a rebellious child who didn't want to grow up, who went against everyone, everything, and anyone, and it didn't matter who you were or how you were. So here we have another point that actually leads to moments of disorganization where we might be late, we don't show up, I don't care if it's inconvenient for you. I can allow myself to do that, and so on. You understand what I mean? This is a con artist's card. I want to reveal her a little. I wouldn't say she lied often, but I have this feeling that, especially later in life, she often twisted the information a bit. We make the desired seem real. Twisted either the information or said, in the series, I'm late because I'm trying. I'm the one who, so to speak, didn't leave the house. I'm late to the series because I'm trying it out. I myself, so to speak, didn't leave the house. This is just an example. I'm not coming because I'm sick, but I'm not actually sick. And in the second state, a little bit. That is, I think that at some point it became a pathology and a habit. If they're already talking to me about it, then just like that. And it became somewhat of a character trait, we can call it a character trait at a later point, when my activity and my ability to keep myself afloat and compete, well, here, the competitor and the berserk. My adrenalines are afloat, and that's okay, right? Competition is causing me absolutely irreparable, let's say, utterly irreparable damage in a way that I can't anymore. I'm just completely exhausted. I don't want anything anymore. I'm tired of dragging this competition, your stupid concerts, your stupid rules, it's starting to have a reverse effect and causing us not just rejection, but like, I really can't, I don't want to. There, you were shining like gold over there and it started to wiggle out of it. Okay. After the scammer, right to the slacker. A slacker is not just laziness, but also depression. There, to confirm what I'm saying right now, I am physically forced and morally forced. I can't, I won't. Let's do it tomorrow. Let's do it the day after tomorrow. Let's do it in a week. Maybe we'll meet somehow. Maybe I'll feel better. So we can clearly see this pattern of behavior here. Well, and a traitor. This is the moment of the explosion of concerts, plans, I don't know, some dates, the release of something, the launch of something, and so on. I want to look at the relationships with my parents. I'm here. I'll try. Uh huh. The relationships with my parents were not easy, I want to tell you. And not just in the realm of being the Queen of Cups, not just in the sense of what I'm pouring into myself, in a fiery way, but in general. They seem to have read it. They seem to be trying to mold that ideal girl they wanted to see, right? And what do you think? You're embarrassing us. Look at how you're behaving. Look at what you're allowing yourself, what you're doing, what you're this, what you're that, and so on. And in a subtle way, well, let's put it this way. It was a scandal behind the scenes, right? In a subtle way, there were always sticks flying at her that she had to stand up to, right? Ira, it was more for her. And you're embarrassing us. Look at how you're behaving. Look at what you're allowing yourself, what you're doing, what you're this, what you're that, and so on. And in a subtle way, well, let's put it this way, it was a scandal behind the scenes, right? In a subtle way, there were always sticks flying at her that she had to stand up to, right? Ira, it was more for her. The Three of Swords in relation to parents, yeah, Dad was especially tough about this. And the Five of Wands. So we have the Wands. We have a defensive position here. A scandal with my dad. And relationships with my parents give me not very good impressions, feelings, and so on. So there wasn't really much of a connection with my parents, to be honest. It's clear the parents couldn't handle it. Because of the rebellious card, the boy who hasn't grown up. I don't want to grow up and will live my way. She's inconvenient for them. We want to mold her, but she doesn't fit, embarrassing our family name. Even without discussing her later life, her relationships with her parents were not close. For Galina, she was always somehow not right for them. But even if we don't talk about the later period of her life, we can clearly say that in general, the relationships with her parents were not very close. Yeah, for them, Galina was always somehow not right. Yeah, good job. You're making progress here. You're well known. You're earning money, of course. That's always great, right? Where things intersect. That's Britney, basically. So look, this guy here isn't like that. Well, it's clear he's not like that, but still, right. Before you, the guy was like, look at what they're writing about you here, and look at how you embarrassed yourself here, and so on and so forth. Of course, the parents eventually came to terms with it 100%, but especially in all of that, it was more cruel and dysfunctional towards her. If the mother is more understanding and empathetic towards our needs. So what are we going to ask you more directly? We might inquire about your thoughts on family activities, like enjoying desserts with you and Dad. I love healthy snacks such as fruits, nuts, and yogurt, but shuffling them around in the kitchen or during meal prep is really inconvenient and time-consuming. There it seems Dad spread out. Dad was quite a singer and he had a nice voice, and I think they sang together. So this is a very eloquent card. Three of coins. Dad gives me this talent. Dad gives me and teaches me in a way to sing. Yeah, Dad gave me this talent, this wonderful gift of music and melody. Mom didn't mind at all. She was supportive in her own way. What's most interesting and fascinating is that during this period, this particular time, Dad kind of stopped being the supportive character because then Mom steps into that role, taking over with grace and strength. Mom steps into that role. And Mom, in so many ways, makes the house normal. That makes the house a home. So as we're asking, let's go back. We're asking about the relationship with dad. The grief card, by the way, right? Five of spades, cup, queen of drawers. I don't want to, but I have to respond to him firmly. I have to stand up to you firmly in order to defend my rights, my positions, to stand up for myself and live not according to how you want to see me. So let's take a look at addictions, but not too specifically for now, just to understand when they actually manifested. Let's ask it this way. Did she have addictions before her famous life, when we already know her as a person with addictions? Before she met that Blake, who, as they say, is hooking her up with substance. I'm trying to write this down in a structured way, folks, but it might be a bit unstructured too, because more questions come to mind as we work through this. Yes. Did she have addictions? We need prophets. That's already clear. And this is the King of Cups, as far as I remember. Oh no, the Lord of Fantasy, King of Cups, sorry. Yes. Did she have addictions even before this famous life and before Blake? Yes, there were. It was alcohol. There were no drugs at that time, but there was alcohol, because false prophets is a state of intoxication with altered consciousness. King of Cups? King of Cups, Ten of Pentacles. I have the impression that this is something familial. I don't know how passionate her dad was, but it seems to me. But it gives the impression that this is a family issue. This was even before that, and by the way, quite a while earlier, I think, even in her teenage years. But it gives the impression that this is a family issue. This was even before that, and by the way, quite a while earlier, I think, even in her teenage years. Why do I say it's familial? Here on the second deck, 3 parks fall. So, you have ancestral connections, and so on. And here the Ten of Pentacles falls, which is also ancestral. Basically, it's an ancestral business if we're talking about the meaning of the card, about the ancestral moment. Right here, temperance, that it's normal in their families. Vengeance, scapegoat, love, doors, mirrors. This was even in her early teenage years. So let's put it this way. Not to a shot, but to a bottle. Let's say Amy was struggling long before all this famous life. So first of all, the usual addiction is alcohol. And she was happiness even before that. But regarding temperance, we can assert, and with the Two of Pentacles, I wanted to balance it out. I knew where the measure was and where it wasn't. And you understood whether there were drugs or substances involved, or if there were substances, long before. Well, in short, before. From that well-known life and before Blake, the purity of Ma's grandpa and the lament, drugs came before Blake. And before that, life. But they were different. They were brighter. Not so often. I've been through this before, but it wasn't as destructive. It wasn't as cruel. It's not as life-threatening to the body, I'll put it that way. Let's ask ourselves, did Amy really want that scene? Or did her dad just push her into it and say, you know what? I couldn't do it. So why don't you do it? Because parents sometimes like to substitute. or project their lost years or missed opportunities onto their children and so on. Kapina pride. What led to that? Four of Cups? The Four of Swords starts the spread, right? Knight of Swords? I tend to think that it was more about the sexual presentation. I wasn't against it. And not to say that I was very anxious there. Not to say that I slept and dreamed very soundly. I wasn't against it because I liked singing no matter what, whether it was on stage or whatever. But it was from the father's influence. Because there's a lot. Knight of Balls, Page of Cups. Oh my God, where's that? Well, Six of Wands. Okay, Page of Coins. We're talking about how there are a lot of male cards, a male aspect. So I'm more than sure that the father's influence played a bigger role here than Amy's own desires. I mean, what she sang, what she loved, yes, that's true. She didn't mind, and I think she somewhat romanticized the moment of show business, not fully understanding what it would be like, well, considering her personality plus. What she sang, what she loved, she didn't mind, and she romanticized show business. She didn't mind, and I think she somewhat romanticized the moment of show business, not fully understanding what it would be like, considering her personality as well. And this also added a somewhat negative aspect to her psychological state. Was there a moment that in business in her head there is romanticized? Did she think that? She says it's quite harsh and tough because honestly, the business stage is quite harsh and tough. Oh, for endurance. The moment of the career was very romanticized. It was very, very, very romanticized. Plus, I get the impression that the earning potential was also a significant factor. At that time, either the family didn't have much money or something else was going on. Because here we have the Queen of Pentacles, and when I asked whether she really wanted that career, they also talked about money. So it was more important to say, like, go on, kid, go if they want you, then go, of course. The kid might not have wanted it anymore, and it didn't really matter. No, you go, because there's money there. And by the way, we're going back to the question. The second question, the question was about, oh my God, what was the question? Do you remember what the question was? Of course you remember, because you were watching. I'm just rambling here and I've already forgotten. After all, the career moment was romanticized. Look, the Queen of Pentacles. Money, yes. But in everything else, death. So, I didn't think it would be like this. I didn't even suspect. So this career came back to me from a different angle. You know, dark side of this career. And I was told that everything would be great, wonderful, and so on. They told me, you can do it all, you'll endure, and all that. And I quietly inside the card of nostalgia. By the way, Emperor, we remember that mom held on. The house and I wanted to go back home inside. The card of nostalgia often talks about how we remember nostalgia. Generally, we remember our childhood. We remember how freely we lived, did what we wanted, and so on. It sometimes speaks a bit about children. So this career was romanticized, and they were whispering in her ear that everything would be great, nice, wonderful, easy, because it's not like digging in the ground, as some people say. They promised the work of another person who tells them that it's easier. Was Amy disappointed overall with this? This career was clearly romanticized, and they were whispering in her ear that everything would be great, nice, wonderful, and easy, because it's not like digging in the ground, as some people say. They promise the work of another person who tells them that it's easier. Was Amy disappointed in principle with this part of her life? Let's call it that. Was Amy disappointed with this part of her life? Did she realize this was not what she wanted from the point of her life? Let's put it that way. And was she not so much disappointed, but, let's ask it this way. Did she come
to the realization that this was not at all what she wanted. Even like that. So when the charm fades, you sit there thinking, is this what my whole life is going to be like? And this is how I am. So you understand what I mean. Yeah, it's great at the beginning with all the paparazzi, all those fans, and so on. But when that passes, it eventually wears off sooner or later. I think that at some point she was disappointed in all of this, and it probably even bored her. And it probably even was, well, in short, it triggered aggression. I think, let's take a look. Oh, this chat will confirm what I said earlier. Again, was there disappointment about the money? There was no disappointment. Everything was great. I was on top. I was earning really well. But first of all, the King of Swords. It put me in some uncomfortable positions, and some people were cruel to me in principle. They demanded a lot from me that I couldn't, let's say, give. I couldn't do it physically, I couldn't do it psychologically, but they expected it from me because here, the ball is clean. We have a blade here. They demanded a lot from me that couldn't, let's say, give. I couldn't do it physically, I couldn't do it psychologically, but they expected that from me because here, the ball is clean. We have a blade here. The ones and the 10 of wands. This career has become a very heavy burden for me. A very heavy burden. I'm exhausted. So here we don't have the 10 of wands, but one more, you see. 11 wands I'm carrying, not just 10. And all of this has become such a heavy burden for me that it has really knocked me down. I'm carrying 11 wands, not just 10. And all of this has become such a heavy burden for me that it has really knocked me down. The 9 of wands, and here's the cup. That is, emotionally, I'm not doing well. I'm beaten down. There. 9 on the 7 of wands. Here's the 9. I'm beaten down. I'm emotionally drained. I'm overwhelmed and just want to be left alone. Leader, I just want to curl up in a corner, so that no one touches me, so that no one bothers me, so that, God forgive me, I've been forgotten because I can't take it anymore. And I can more, that's it, endure. Since we're smoothly transitioning to Blake now, because this family situation is pretty clear to me, and I hope it's clear to you too. And now we're slowly moving on to Blake. The moment my father refused, and he wasn't thrilled about it, and he didn't give his blessing. I don't know, maybe he wasn't thrilled because they got engaged with Blake. Did this weaken Amy and maybe put a period on their already strained relationship? Even more, Seven of Wands. On one hand, I didn't expect this, but on the other hand, I did expect it. And on the third hand, that was the most underhanded move you could make. I'm about to lay down some theory for you, but I hope this is just my theory and my twisted imagination. I understand that Blake had a negative impact on Amy. I understand the concerns of my loved ones. But let's put it this way, the cards aren't falling too well here. The 7 of Wands is about cunning, 4 of Coins and 9 of Cups. It's like Blake is a threat to their wealth and comfortable life. Do you understand what I mean? So not only does he influence her, but he also affects her state of mind and sobriety. And to a great extent, as we've been looking at her issues, they are heavily seasoned with money. And it seems like he is a threat to the life we've gotten used to. Moderation, again, the 5 of Wands. So I wasn't surprised by what you said, your ugh, but deep down I was still hoping for some kind of conditional support. Well, for us, it's no longer, in principle, a secret. Because what? Because we saw that the relationship there was, well, so. It's big. Did Amy really love Blake so much that she, I don't know, got stuck on him like a tattoo? And here she has to weave her way out and sing her tattoo song. I think every correct response, she, this is a new over nature, a new over nature, like a new over nature, a new over nature. That's what I said. This is my part. It's a reflection of me. It's me. We don't call it a karmic relationship. No, these were not karmic relationships. Karmic relationships are very rare, and this was not one of them. Well, was basically expecting that, well, first of all, she really wanted to marry him. Let's put it this way. Oh, Blake is, of course, not a very cheerful guy. She knew him, not great. Together, wonderful. And she understood that he wasn't great. But then, when we were alone together, we had a great time. We were comfortable. It was wonderful. We were in all these flights of fantasy about how our life could turn out, how we could live there, and so on, how it could be. We had a great time. We were comfortable. We were wonderful. We were in all these flights of fantasy about how our life could turn out, how we could live there and so on, how it could be, our plans, all of that, but it was still seasoned with substances on top. The second, third point. Our plans, ours, that's all, but still it's seasoned with extras. Second, third moment. I think Amy had something like Stockholm Syndrome. This is when the victim falls in love with their, let's say, maniac. This is when you have a harsh abuser, when you have a really toxic person, but you love that person so much and accept it as normal that you even justify all their cruelty. It's my fault. I didn't keep quiet. I'm to blame because I did something. He's not to blame. What? Are we here by accident? What's not evil, victim? Sophisticated trolls, but despite all of that, Lady Pingersy. So she took a lot of things personally and through her own lens. And she knew perfectly well that she wasn't exactly a very easy person, not very light in character. She understood all of this very well. By the way, wanted from him, let's put it this way. Here's the ring of frustration, and here's Lady, basically, she really wanted to be with him and genuinely wanted to go through everything with him. So she saw in him a person with whom she could fulfill her unrealized dreams, because you remember, right? She, as a woman, didn't realize herself and wanted to give love, so to speak, and to be preserved. As a woman, she didn't realize herself and wanted to give love, so to speak, and to be preserved. And with one thing, she wanted to do everything for him. Let's ask this. Why was she so dependent on him? Because we are very similar, not by appearance, but by inner composition. We were very, very close. He knew how to speak beautifully, the way. He knew how to speak beautifully. You could get lost in dreams, thoughts, and so on with him. He could really spin a beautiful tale, and she felt almost enchanted, like she was under a spell. He knew how to beautifully spin a web of lies. And she was just known. She was enchanted. But not enchanted, dear people. The connection to Lucifer is my reflection. It's a reflection of me. It's like two identical souls, so to speak. And still the Tabalivsky syndrome was mentioned. Yes. Whose fault is it? Because she started using substances even more. She started without him. It was different. Everyone knew, but I am not defending him. These unfortunate relationships sometimes worked, sometimes didn't. They came and went. He cheated. Everyone knew this. These unfortunate, inconsistent relationship and his infidelity. She was aware of all of this. So, these unfortunate relationships, which sometimes worked out and sometimes didn't, he was cheating. She was aware of all of this, by the way. All of this created a very harsh crack and pushed her to start using substances in the first place. She knew, by the way, about all of this. All of this created a very harsh crack and pushed her to start using it in the first place. Second, he showed her. Most likely, what so to speak, is better to use. What is better to use? What is of higher quality? We call it strange, but yes. What's cooler? What's more awesome? Their unfortunate love, from which she thought it was her destiny, her whole life, and so on, and similar things, and magical substance before that. So, he didn't exactly get her hooked. He more likely provided her with those substances and an understanding of the classification of different types of substances, what affects what gives energy, what provides relaxation, and so on. And in this way, she just, knowing all of this, of course, she into it. So he gave her an understanding of how, where. Well, the two of them obviously started doing all of this. Well, that's where the habit forms, that's where the body gets used to it. And again, they had such a relationship that honestly, it was a whole Santa Barbara over there. And so all of this just went downhill. So let's put it this way, I wouldn't place all the blame for what happened to her on Blake. I think it would have happened sooner or later, even without him. If we take him out of her life, I think that we would still come to this just a bit later. The mistake was with her. We would still come to this just a bit later. There was a mistake with her and some Travis. For what purpose? Some Travis, indeed. For what purpose? Why? For what reason? I think it's a film director. Well, let's put it this way. We essentially know that she never in any way forgot Blake and never stopped loving him. I'm asking, why were these relationships allowed? Just because he treated me, this guy, film director, he treated me well, and I just allowed it. I saw that he was treating me nicely, so I just let that relationship happen. I'm not going to say that she was trying to get rid of it completely. No, she wasn't stupid, of course. No, I just gave it a chance. It could also be because someone put the idea in my head. I think, let's put it this way, it could have been a PR campaign. It could have been someone's guidance. And they might have said, come on, give it a try. Let's do this, all of that. Maybe it was even a plan to try to pull her out of it or to make her forget about her Blake. And it's like, give it a try. Come on, all of that. Maybe it's even a plan to try to get her out or try to make her forget her. It's kind of a somewhat planned action. I let Lilia and the ring happen. Could I have saved her? But since the person treated me well, I just allowed Lelia Pingarisic, by the way, and the ring to happen. Could I have saved her in principle? I mean, could I have been some kind of light in her life? Could I have saved her in principle? So to become some kind of light in her life. Let's say suicide.
It's a pity fierce kind. Oh, because there's a demon, a lady, and a shallot here. I only want to see what I want to see, and no other way. This basically speaks for the name itself. That's just how she was. Holy water. In general already. They didn't live that long. I actually want to win this. Come on, that's enough. And here is the embodied evil. So this arrangement became uncomfortable for her after a while, and I don't need it. It seems to me, let's put it this way, the songs that Amy sang also destroyed her more and more in general. It seems to me, let's put it this way. The songs that Amy sang also destroyed her more and more in general. Why do I say that? Because she lived enough, not a very happy life, let's say, in her love. And every time she sang, plus if you read the lyrics of the songs and compare them with her life, her experiences, let's say, every time she sang about her failures, every time she sang about being left behind, betrayed, and so on, it's impossible to always be and probably to remain a cheerful person. Not such a fun life, let's say, in her love life. And every time she sang, plus if you read the lyrics of the songs and compare them with her life, her experiences, let's say, every time she sang about her failures, every time she sang about being left behind, betrayed, and so on, it's impossible to always be, and probably, to remain a cheerful person. So, singing every time about her failures, sometimes even not casually, going back and singing that song each time, reliving those same circumstances, remembering them and replaying them in her head at every concert. It's terrible. There are people who really, sing a song, sing, sing, sing. It's like, a painful story that you keep repeating, and after a while, you just don't feel any pressure from that story anymore. I don't think that was the case here because since her saga, the one she sang about, didn't come to an end, I think those songs brought her back to all of that. She relived it again. And the realization that the accents were coming to an end, I think they also somewhat destroyed her. What fueled the addictions? It's a strange and compelling question, but I really want to know. What were the underlying factors that fueled the various addictions that people often find themselves struggling with? Now I understand why this gift is the denial of Theophilus and Aphia. I feel like I'm dead while I'm alive. Let me explain. First of all, the denial of Theophilus is a rejection. We remember what the relationship was like with her parents. So these people don't really understand me and don't really support me. The man she loved was sometimes with her, sometimes not. Sometimes they were together, sometimes they had fights, and sometimes there was something else going on. It's not very good here. Producers on their side. Let's do this, let's do that, let's do it this way, let's do it that way. Such water is embodied in evil. You all just fill in the blanks yourselves because we're on YouTube. And now it's clear why there's this merging void. I'm surrounded by a devilish number of people. But inside, I am such a lonely, misunderstood person that it is simply terrifying. And looking at all this attitude, who really cares about someone else's problems? Well, who can I share something deep with if they don't even understand me? Let's put it this way. There are a lot of people. I have no one to talk to. I didn't understand. Yeah, if I were famous, yeah, I would be rich. Why is that? Where is this happiness? I wanted to realize myself as a woman. I wanted a child. I wanted a family. But where is all of this In my head, the picture is one way, but in reality, I see something completely different. I didn't really want this so-called famous life, but okay, famous, but what's the point in that? And this is already becoming my cross that we talked about. And this is already becoming too much for me. I don't want it anymore. I don't need it anymore. By the way, Simon Karinian has come out here. Depression, fatigue. So let's put it this way. There's no clear moment here. I'm asking at what point she broke down. There's no definite moment when Amy really, it all just hit her like a vinaigrette. And that dark streak in which she was trying to claw her way back to a normal life just wouldn't end. At some point, she just stopped doing it. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. That's her, and she was drinking alcohol, obviously. Why did she start to change and become even more aggressive? I think in this field, because I think it's not about the drugs. The drugs aren't the issue. I think it's due to her internal state. The drug is a driver of this negative progress, but not only because of that. So you see, I have money. Lust and heart are there because in relation to today. So you see, I have money. You know, it's that moment when you earn money, but you're not happy about it. Because yeah, I have money, but I want something else. I want different kind of happiness. Because I hit rock bottom and no one understands, because I'm already at 100 and just everything is a mess. And I always go against some kind of resistance. I'm always banging on some doors. I'm always trying to prove something. I'm always pushing for something, but for what? What am I pushing for? And I'm always going against some kind of resistance. I'm always banging on some doors. I'm always trying to prove something. I'm always pushing for something. But for what? What am I pushing for? And all of this just feels like I'm rolling around inside every day. What am I doing this for? And honestly, all of this just truly feels like I'm constantly rolling around inside every single day. I repeat, there's absolutely no support to be found in her parents. There's truly no support to be found in the person she deeply loved. The producers, of course, absolutely don't need this at all. Let's be honest, okay? I'm just the Antichrist, that's it. As that's the only moment I can forget. She drank pretty hard and a lot. And that's it. Because that's the only moment I can block out at this point in time. And she drank quite hard and quite a lot, quite frequently. At what moment did she break down? I think when it all really hit her, it just swept her away. When a strong person runs out of strength, it's already vulgar magic, the gathering of malice, eo, malterated necromancy. At the moment when I poker magicians and evil spirits, Iovo of al maltered necromancy, I had enough strength to fight this and it overwhelmed me. So a kind of conditional humility came over me. It came with the understanding that it can't be any other way. So a kind of conditional humility came over me. It came with the understanding that it can't be any other way. Well, by the way, this is what I'm talking about. A terrible nightmare and the roots of Simon together. It can't be any other way. So I don't have the amplitude to fight again. Because, for what reason already? It's already some kind of, let's say, point. This brings us when she was sent to an island. She came back, and Blake already had a partner, they had a child, and it was truly over when she arrived and saw everything. The visa denial, she was to get an award, but her visa was denied. Canceling the concert hit her hard. I'll throw some cards now, that's it, there's nothing left. Here I also wanted to ask, the visa denial, she was supposed to pick up some award, she was denied open visas, and therefore the cancellation of the concert hit her hard. Well, I'm going to throw a couple of cards now, but I think that based on what we've just seen, that's it, there's nothing left. I think by that time she didn't care about those concerts anymore, whether they happened or not, and I don't think it bothered her. The Lord of the Holy Grail's fantasy, the reflected world. I think by that time she didn't care about those concerts anymore, whether they happened or not, and I don't think it occupied her mind. The Lord of the Holy Grail's fantasy, the reflected world. I was already in those states, in completely terrible states, when I just didn't care anymore. About those concerts, those visas, those awards. Yes, the leak of information from Blake. I remember the question, we'll get to it. The leak of information from Blake about her personal stuff. There, I don't know, maybe some intimate photos, some information got out that affected her in some way. He indicated the release. Well, it's clear that he did it for some money to get substances for himself. It's no secret to anyone here. And it hit her like another blow to the gut. It wasn't something unexpected for her, but it's really another blow to the gut. Self-harm was when we do damage to ourselves, but I think we won't watch it. It's clear that the person was going through something internally and they wanted to ease that inner pain in some way, so they engaged in self-harm. It's psychologically understandable, so that means Blake and Emmy's breakup and the birth of his child. It's psychologically understandable. So that means Blake and Emmy's divorce and the birth of his child. What emotions did she experience during that moment? Standing at a distance of 4 meters, that was precisely the crucial point of the situation. And that led us to the point where it broke in an irreversible way. Absolutely irreversible. Mirror, you did what I wanted. You literally built with him in 1 month, in a short period of time, what I wanted. You stole my dream, in a way. You stole my dream, you copied my dream. You fulfilled all those dreams with him that I wanted. You took that love away from me. She said that letting go, renouncing Theophilus, was a sacrifice of temptation. So this became a specific final point for her. In her moment, there was nothing left to hold on to. Yes, she had a guy who was helping her write the last album. In her moment, there was nothing left to hold on to. Yeah, she had a guy who was helping her write the last album. I already forgot what his name was, I think. And she went off on him on Facebook. I want to understand why she accused him of profiting off her name and taking all the credit for this album. Some say he wrote lightly and didn't mean anything by it, while others say, of course, he wanted to profit from it. I want to understand why she went off on him in love with Lena from the Mirror of Archimia. Lust and trolls. Yeah, now, I want to look at it from another angle. Let's put it this way. Did Mark aim to take all the glory, all the credit for that album, just for himself? By the way, no. Such a fantasy. The Last Judgment. Magic. Her reaction came when she realized the relationship was pointless. At the moment when she internally realized in the relationship that there was nowhere left to fight, nowhere left to struggle, that was when everyone turned away from her and everything fell apart.
When everyone abandoned me, branding me as the last one, she realized the problems were escalating. Then, as everything collapsed, you dog, claim it's your doing. It seemed to her he was betraying her, profiting off her name, and taking all the glory for himself. When everything collapsed around me, you dog, claim it's all you're doing. She felt he was stabbing her in the back, profiting off her name, and taking all the glory and credit. This was driven by her state of mind. So at some point, it seemed to her that he was, stabbing her in the back, and that he was trying to profit off her name, and that he was taking all the glory and all the credit for himself. But this was driven by her state of mind where everything was falling apart, where things were even worse, where all her dreams were being fulfilled by another woman, and then there's you. But this was dictated, her state. Her state was like, here's my mess, here's something even worse. Here's another woman fulfilling all my dreams. And then there's you. And you dog, are in the same boat. You see what I mean? Could anyone have saved her? She could have asked for help. That's the key. Asked to be saved. My light just flickered. Asked to be saved. But what's the problem? Just to ask why? Because we would have ended up where she did anyway. It would just buy her some years in time. She would have still fallen into dependency. Sooner or later, she would have reached that point. So any therapy would have just given her a little more time. Suicide, or a prelude. The Lord of Fantasy. Important lead. It's not suicide, it's an overdose. It's not suicide. No. Of course. Again, the same Lord of Fantasy. It's an overdose and possibly a mix of different medications, substances with alcohol, and so on. This is our action to something mixed, consumed, but not in the context of suicide. In the postscript context of self-awareness in the profession, it seems like that's all I have for today. Over the issue of prescriptions. If you have any questions left, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll answer. You can suggest who we should roast. I have 2 ideas. But of course, the kindergarten is tough. True. Poor person. Really? So, dear people, everything that smiles beautifully at you from the screens of your devices, everything that seems easier, better, brighter, simpler, even wealthier for someone, doesn't always mean that everything is really good there and that everything is truly wonderful and that a person is just living their life without any troubles, So that's how it is. And please, if you notice that you're not feeling very well, don't shut yourself off. And reach out for qualified help from psychotherapists, psychologists, and if it's really, really, really necessary, then psychiatrists. Don't demonize these people. They're not there to label you with some kind of diminished capacity or anything like that. They're there to help you. So take care of yourself. Take care of each other, and until we meet again.